some outstanding and eloquent debates this afternoon. And so I'd just like to add a little bit to the reasons why we're asking all not to support what I believe is a bad bill, a bad public policy bill. I'll take you to Hernando County, county that I represent, a county that is just south of former Sheriff Dean, now Senator Dean, a county that's just north of me, Pasco, where CCA ran a jail, county detention center. In 2010, the county sheriff began the process of taking over the jail because he believed that the county could run the facility more effectively than a private company to do a better job. Upon examination, the sheriff of Hernando County found that the detention center that was run by the private company had serious maintenance problems, to where the county was now forced to spend $3 million. Now we're talking Hernando County with a very small budget, now having to spend $3 million to reverse the major repairs that the private company did to a facility paid for by the taxpayers of Hernando County. In fact, in hiring the county-run prison, it became clear that the quality of officers that the private company had hired was questionable. They only hired 45 of the 177 private company employees back to run now the county jail. Most that were rejected members were rejected either because they failed the background checks or did not meet the standards of a correctional officer. In fact, after only 1 year of operation under the county that was run by a private company, the taxpayers of Hernando County saved $200,000. You know, recently, I don't know if you had the opportunity about it, less than a year ago, the State Department of Corrections drug interdiction investigators tried to gain access to South Bay. That's a prison that was run by a private company. That was around 2 o'clock in the morning. To conduct a drug sweep at the prison, the investigators could not gain access to the prison because there was no guard stationed at the front gate. This is a private prison that we're paying to keep our community safe. No one answered. An alert button that the inspection team pressed twice. Also, no one responded after the team shined a flashlight at the security camera to try and get the attention of guards who were supposed to be in the control room. After 20 minutes of waiting and a phone call to their supervisor, the drug interdiction team left without trying to call anyone in the prison. They couldn't get a hold of them. The team filed an incident report and the Corrections Inspector General wrote a memo. But you see, the Corrections Department, the Department of Corrections, did not officially investigate. You know why? Because it does not oversee the private prisons that the taxpayers pay for. Instead, that was handled by a different department, which they then went ahead back and relied on the private company, GEO, to investigate its own staff. Public safety, ladies and gentlemen, public safety. And if I may, when you start comparing apples to apples, let's take a public versus private facility. We continue to hear about the savings we're going to enjoy if this bill passed. I agree with Senator Jones. If it is 7%, then why don't we just have proviso language in the budget that says the Department of Corrections will reduce their budget by 7% in Region 4. Let me give you a couple of, let me give you an instance here, a scenario. Public versus private. Okeechobee versus South Bay. Now, Okeechobee being the public prison, South Bay being the privately run prison. The year built, Okeechobee, 1995. South Bay, 1997. So the facilities are approximately the same age. The mission, adult male for both prisons. Total capacity, 1,800 for Okeechobee, the public prison, 1,862 for private prison. So it's comparable. Total full-time employees, 399 in South Bay, 285 in Okeechobee, the public prison. In fact, the public prison operates with 100 fewer officers. Now, as you know, some of these prisons have what they call the Department of Transportation squads, DOT squads. Okeechobee, the public prison, has 2. South Bay, the private prison, has 0. Other squads, Okeechobee, the public prison, has 4. Private prison, 0. K-9 units, Okeechobee has K-9 units. South Bay, the private, has none. And the fact the programs offered to promote reentry are comparable. Substance abuse, voluntary literacy, transition. But what is strikingly different is the savings, the so-called savings. There is no savings. Because Okeechobee, a public-run facility, their per diem, according to the Department of Corrections figures, is $37.91. South Bay, the private-run prison, $48.16. It costs 27% more to operate South Bay. There has been a lot said, a lot of information given out, a lot of numbers. And just to reiterate what other members spoke about, as we talk about the per diems, as we talk about whether there will be a savings or not, as we talk about privatization, to reiterate what Senator Jones said, let's talk and think about the families that will be affected if this bill were to pass. There is no question that families will be affected, communities will be affected, people will not have a job. And the trickle-down effect will be enormous, not only to communities, but to the taxpayers in those states. And again, to think that we would turn over $500 million worth of taxpayer-paid correctional facilities to 2 corporations. 2 corporations. Maybe more, but I don't think so. I'm sure you've all been lobbied just by the 2 groups. But to think that we would turn over $500 million worth of taxpayer-paid facilities. You know, as a Republican, I see my Republicans, and even some of the Democrats were concerned, and rightfully so. In fact, many of them. People of the state. As Wall Street was bailed out, the banks were bailed out, the auto industry was bailed out. We had great concerns. Concerns that our tax dollars were going to bail out a privately run company that couldn't make it on their own. Let's not bail out companies that run private prisons. Let's not turn over facilities paid for by taxpayers. Let's make sure that public safety comes first, not only in those jails, but in our communities as well. Somebody said to me the other day, if it walks like a bailout, talks like a bailout, it probably is a bailout. But it's not a bailout to the taxpayers. It's not a bailout to our correctional officers. If anything, it will hurt them more if we move this policy forward. This bad public policy. I would ask you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
I'm not very looking at it.